do. That fresh cut. I also have a fairly fresh cut.
You
So
do.
yeah,
You keep it.
fairly
You,
fresh
you
cut.
keep it high and tight.
Something like that. All right, let me go. I got to go to the gram. I always forget, man. So one thing I don't know. I'm assuming that when I click in stream on Restream,
Yeah.
that it ends Instagram
Oh, that's
because
hilarious.
last week I went to lunch and had a meeting and was like, man, I still got Instagram open. I need to shut that. And I pulled it up and it was
We were still streaming to
like
Instagram.
streaming, but it didn't show anything. So I'm assuming it cut it off, but who knows?
That's so funny.
All right, so I've got to add the gram.
I'm on Safari today, by the way.
Wow. Yeah, they definitely have updated Restream to get us going. All right, I'm gonna click go live. Should be going here. All right. So, man, just tech issues everywhere, bro.
So dumb. It's just so dumb.
It's
There's
so
no
dumb.
there's no explanation for it.
So I'll take care of. Yeah, I was gonna say just real quick. I'll take care of all the shares and all that.
All right. You know what's so weird is I've done a couple of meetings and I've tried to use my AirPods.
Yeah.
And I have found that my computer audio is better than the audio from AirPods.
I would agree with that. I wonder why.
I don't know. I don't know why, and I don't know why it's just a go-to. Like you see a lot of times people, even guests on our show, they'll have their AirPods in, whatever. And I guess I don't know. It is funny. Have you watched golf lately where they've got that new thing where they interview the person, you know? So I'm assuming like it's weird that they give them AirPods because it's like if you watch them, the camera is like right there in front of them.
Yeah.
Like so. I don't know why they
not
give them
camera.
Huh?
Why not just do the a
or
microphone?
why not give them a cordless mic or the new man, because they still got to take a still got to take it and put it in their ear. So the clip-on thing that they use.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That sometimes it's got the little fuzzy thing and they use it sometimes like man on the street type deal and whatever.
Sure.
So yeah. So Greg Davis, hey bro, good question. Look here, this is a Munsingwear, the original Penguin golf shirt with the kind of pulled out and the old. I didn't want to go straight, straight up like that, but
super preppy look.
Yeah, we got it. But look here, we got 80s. Out in an 80s style.
Yeah, I'm doing the shares on Facebook and just saw the collar pop. I'm kind of digging the collar up. That's definitely the 80s.
Yeah,
that's definitely the 80s.
Yep.
All right, so let me go over here and let's do my group shares. Let's just send it to everybody today. What do you think?
Everybody needs this.
Everybody. It's going to be a good one today.
If you're thirsty. It's food if you're hungry.
My God.
It's rest if you're weary.
He's already in rare form. The Orphan Nation mascot page.
Did you share it to them?
I didn't. I should. Yeah. I should though. I really should.
Wasn't that some kind of a promo deal for some national?
Yeah, it was a contest.
Mascot contest. Yeah, it
was a contest for the best mascot name in the country.
Oh, the best. I mean, it may be the worst art and name combo.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Ever. Absolutely. 100%.
Look, if you're not a Centralia orphan, you look at that and go, I mean, my God, have mercy. Churches changed their names. You guys, what are you doing?
Right. I know. There's some great nicknames, and Illinois has some great high school nicknames.
Yeah.
There's I think. Okay, so don't judge me. I'm just reporting. Okay,
You decide. We report.
I'm just making the statement. I literally think it's Freeburg. You can fact check me. I think Freeburg in Illinois. It's not Freeport, because I feel like Freeport's the pretzels. I think it's Freeburg is the midgets. Just saying, bro.
I'm talking to the little guy in the back. Hey, their cheer is like, little guy in the back, come get some. Come get some.
Little guy in the back video. Oh, it's one of the great ones of all time.
Oh man.
Oh my goodness.
He's like, I wouldn't make fun of midgets. Here's ready for some Fond du Lac, dock spiders.
Oh,
dock
wow.
Spiders, and it looks like a dock, like it's got rope tied around it, around wooden letters. There's the Jacksonville jumbo shrimp.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I don't know. This is the Marlins AAA team.
What?
Marlins AAA are the New Orleans baby cakes.
Okay. Yeah, there's some weird like minor league team names that are just absolutely crazy. One of our, you know, I don't want to say competitors, because we only played them like a couple times, I think, in high school. I don't know if you ever played them, but one of the weirdest names is the Effingham Flaming Hearts.
The Flaming Hearts. Yeah.
Like, that strikes fear. There's another one up by Champaign, the Fisher Bunnies.
The Fisher Bunnies?
That's the nickname that you chose to strike fear in the hearts of your opponents, is
yes.
The Fisher Bunnies.
The bunnies. The bunny. The bunny.
Ooh, I ate the bunny.
For real.
So awesome.
How about the Binghamton Rumble Ponies?
Okay. Wow. What? They got creative with it. We could do a whole show on nicknames. Hey, why don't you do me a favor, and you need to read our weather report today.
Oh yeah.
Before we get started.
Mobilized Church podcast chief meteorologist Ken Bistarkey gives us a report today. 56 degrees with a high of 65 in Niles, Ohio. It appears that the current temperature is going to be dyslexically turned around to a high.
It is. I don't know if it's dyslexic, but it's definitely bipolar. I know that much.
Yeah, from 56 to 65.
I like it. I like it. All right, so we've had a little bit of internet issues. We've had an interesting time here at the church. We got struck by lightning, or at least had I say that we at least had a major power surge and power outage, whatever, here at the church, and it's rocked all of our systems. So we're doing pretty good today. Internet's working fine. So hopefully
I tried. Okay. I attempted 4 times to get it going. 4 times to get it up and running at the church. And finally I went in and I told my wife, I said, man, I can't get the internet. She said, it's gone down completely 3 times through the morning for the school. So I had to make a mad dash back to the house. I don't have any of my studio equipment. I probably just sound like a average Joe today.
All right, so let's go ahead and get rolling. It won't let me change. Here's the only deal, Ken. I don't know, for some reason it didn't change the orientation. Normally it changes the orientation, so we may not be able to bust out some reels off of this one, which is a shame because this is going to be fire.
Yeah. Well,
But
our our show engineer and producer is watching right now, so he may be able to
yeah,
pull something out.
we'll put it on him to do something like that. So, all right, you ready to get going?
Let's go.
All right, here we go. Let me get my phone over here. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mobilized Church Podcast. This is Chris Dillingham, alongside my big brother Ken Dillingham, Jr. the Third, who is in a different environment right now.
Yes,
We're
a remote location.
Hey, listen, here's the deal. We're fighting through some stuff, but you know what? We won't be denied. A little adversity doesn't mess with us. As a matter of fact, you just preached for us the 7 P's of perseverance, and you're living it out today.
It's it. I actually ran through this morning. I ran through and got a good old fashioned medicine ball.
There you go.
You know, pulled it out from the gates of hell. And man, listen, I got me a medicine ball, and I told the person, I said, I don't see why there's any reason today that I won't accomplish everything God wants me to. That's what I told the guy.
Yeah. But that went over big time.
He said, Roger that, sir.
There you go.
That's what he said.
Oh man, that's awesome. So we apologize for the delay, but just having some internet issues today, but everything seems to be working good. So
yeah.
So appreciate you hanging with us. So I say we just go right at it today, because this is going to be a good one. And I feel like this is kind of a conversation. I don't want to say we waste time, because we never waste time, but sometimes we talk about stuff that just humors us a little bit.
True.
Like high school mascot names and that kind of stuff.
And it humors our audience to some degree.
That's debatable. I think it's debatable. So we wanted today, I think this is an important topic. I think it's a good topic. We should go right at it today. All right. So we do appreciate everybody being on, and we want to hear your comments, because I think this is going to be a topic that's going to strike a chord with a lot of people. All right. So Ken, here, what we're going to talk about today is, and I want to kind of frame it in the form of a question, I think. I was kind of thinking through this. I want to frame it in the form of a question. And the question is, are we living in the last days?
Great question.
There's so much. I mean, there's so much talk. Is this because, obviously there have been crises in the world. I mean, really since the beginning, and there's been wars, and there's been famines, and there's been, pestilence, to use the biblical term. Like, there's been all of these things happen in our world today. So what makes this particular season, this particular time, a unique season, a unique time in the world? Are we drawing closer to what we believe is the second coming of the Lord? And so if that's the case, if this is a unique hour, if this is a unique time, maybe talk about, let's talk about why that is and how we know that's the case. And then the second part of the question is, if that is the case, what should be the mindset and the attitude of a disciple? How should we view these things? Because I think, Ken, there's a lot of people that are a lot of followers of Jesus. I think our world is unsettled, but I think there's a lot of followers of Jesus who are battling kind of this internal conflict of just feeling totally unsettled because of the tumultuous world we live in, the bombardment of information and media and communication. You constantly see, all the things that are going on. You're seeing it happen in real time with video and internet and all that stuff. And so, like, man, it just feels like there's constantly something crazy going on in our world. So the two questions: are we living in the last days, and why? And then, if we are, what should the mindset of a disciple be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's a perfect setup, because as you said, I mean, there has been war, there has been famine and disease. You know, the bubonic plague. Um, you know, I mean, how difficult would it be to make the argument during the time of the bubonic plague? I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that was. I mean, goodness. I hate to do comparisons of cataclysmic like
Sure. Right.
disease events, like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but I mean, really, at the end of the day, the bubonic plague was probably far worse than COVID.
Oh, man. You
You know
would
what I
think,
mean?
right?
I mean,
Dude,
goodness, it
the
was. I mean, they called it Black Death, and it was. I mean, it struck fear. I mean, COVID did too. It was, you know, but
the
so
estimates of the bubonic plague are somewhere between 25 and 50 million deaths
yeah,
in Europe.
yeah.
Bro, that's wild.
Yeah, like at the time it was, I mean, it was bordering on, well, wasn't it bordering on like 50% of the population or 40% of the population died? And
Mhm.
that's huge. And so I
50%,
think
yeah.
that, you know, it's I mean, it was clearly probably the numero uno pandemic
Yeah.
of history. Um, so yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, obviously people live in their time. You know,
Yeah.
people live in their era. Um, I was thinking about this last night. I was thinking about like people, you know, people think because of the fact that we've got technology and we've got, I mean, for crying out loud, I saw a deal the other day that's, you know, like the robotic vacuum cleaner that you can get in your house.
Yeah, the Roomba or Zumba or whatever
Yeah,
it's called.
well, I saw an ad for one now for your yard.
Let's go.
And the crazy thing about it
Oh,
is, the crazy thing is, it's not that much more expensive than a zero turn mower.
what?
I know. I mean, I'm like, So anyway, but the thing is, though, I mean, we look at those kinds of things. We're like, well, man, we send people to the moon, and we got, you know, and so you think about, you know, back in the day, colleges and universities and stuff like that. You're like, boy, they probably didn't have near the education we have today, man. We know so much more, and we, you know, but really, if you go back and you study the academic rigor of some of those eras, it was actually far more rigorous
Yeah.
than college and university today. I
No, for
mean,
sure.
you know, people were speaking multiple languages and Latin and, you know, so on and so forth. I mean, it used to be for you to get a to through Harvard to get a degree in theology, or I'm sorry, to get a degree in uh, like a doctor of juris doctor. You actually had to get a degree in theology first, and you had to learn
Interesting.
Greek and Hebrew. So you had to learn Greek, Hebrew, get you a doctorate or get you a degree. You had to get a Master of Divinity before you could get a law degree from Harvard
I mean, what's
many
hard
years ago.
about that? Like,
So
what's the big
my
deal?
point is to say, I mean, wouldn't
Yeah.
that be crazy if all judges and attorneys had a degree in theology today? I mean, what a different, I mean, just, you see, it shows you the difference of the world. But
Sure.
okay, so here's the thing that I'm saying. So I make the statement: are we in the last days? With the understanding that I'm sure that people in the day of the bubonic plague thought that, you know, that they were in the last days. The eclipse that just happened.
Yeah.
You know, I read a
Yeah.
deal about the eclipse of 18, whatever the last one was, the full eclipse that went through Texas, and it was 18 something, 37 or 73 or whatever it was, and it literally there were people that were waiting, thinking that the rapture was going to happen. In
Yeah.
fact, there were even stories of of people who committed suicide because the eclipse came and went, and they were still here on the earth. They thought they missed the rapture, and so they committed suicide.
Wow.
So, I mean, just some stories that I read when I was looking at, recently. I mean, do you remember we had this eclipse thing here?
It was, and tons of conversations about how it, like, there were all kinds of videos and everything out there about how this played into end time prophecy.
Right.
A lot of
Right. That's what I'm
prognostications
saying.
made. Yeah, absolutely.
Was it last week or
maybe a couple weeks ago?
Was it a week before? I don't even remember that. The eclipse
obviously made a big impact on us.
Isn't it? Well, but I think it's also evidence of the way our brains are geared in these, like you just said, 24-hour news cycles.
Move on.
It's like,
right?
Yeah, that's old news, bro. We saw it. We had to get glasses. We went on. But anyway, but I do think that those things are important, as we point out that there have been different times and eras, and there have been indicators, whether it's disease or pestilence or famine or unique natural phenomenon or war, because we look at the biblical identifiers or indicators that say, when you see these things, know that the end is near. But I do believe that there is some uniqueness. There is some uniqueness to the world that we're living in today. And to me, probably primarily it hinges on the fact of the reformation of the nation of Israel. 1948, the end of the World War II, when Israel became a nation and recognized in the modern era. It's always been a nation, but when it had been dispersed, the Romans dispersed the Jews. Antiochus Epiphanes came in, tore down Jerusalem. Historically, basically the Jews were sent out across the whole face of the earth. And in 1948, when Israel became again a nation, I think that changed the tenor of just about every prophetic indicator.
Yes.
What makes something post 1948 different? What makes a disease or a pandemic or a war or whatever? What makes that different in 2024 than it did in the time of the bubonic plague, or what makes that different than World War I or the Civil War? Or whatever.
Right.
So I think those things are important because the Bible does talk about the reunification of Israel. The Bible talks about the world, Armageddon, the final conflict, military conflict that will happen on the earth is situated in Israel, and it's against Israel. Well, if there is no Israel in Israel, right? If there is no nation of Israel, the Bible prophesies that the world is going to come against Israel. If that nation doesn't exist, then so in 1928, in World War I era, right? You go in the early 1900s in the World War I. You couldn't say, well, this could be the start of Armageddon because there was no Israel for the world to attack. So I think those are important indicators that make the events that we're facing today different than some of the events in the past that could have been like, well, man, we had this happen and that happen and whatever. And it doesn't help our cause, as you just mentioned, these people that come along and it doesn't help our cause that people have this whole, the crisscross and the aleph and all the things that are, it's like it, and I love the memes that were following that said, isn't it such an American thing to do to say that because these things are happening over North America, that these are indicators of end time biblical prophecy? Like, that's so American. that we interpret end time biblical prophecy about what's happening here in America, when you could make the argument that America except for the fact that I think the only way that you can make an argument that America is in prophecy is in the book of Revelation. The lion sprouts the wings of eagles, and the lion is the animal that is typical to the Great Britain.
Yeah.
And then we're the eagle, and the United States came out of. I mean, that's like, and who knows with biblical imagery, like.
Sure. But it's weird. It is weird that that was written, you know, like thousands of years ago, 2,000 years ago.
Right.
And the emblem of Great Britain is the lion, and the emblem or the mascot or whatever you want to call it of the United States is the eagle. So coming out of that certainly makes sense. But you're so right about how we view so many things through the lens of American events versus what you're talking about. Like the end times really has to do with what happens with Israel and the Jewish people and God's people, like what really happens with that. You know, I think one of the things too, Ken, like, you know, the term conspiracy theory, you know, so there's a lot of talk that was a created term by those who were actually trying to discredit information that was coming out. You know, it was coming out of from sources about things that were happening in our government, whatever. And so the government created this term and this idea of conspiracy theory, and then started seeding the culture with clearly garbage information and whatever. Because what happens is when you have like real things that are happening, but then you throw in all this other stuff that's clearly not believable and whatever, then it causes you to disbelieve everything. And I think that happens with prophecy. Are there certain things that are legitimate and real? Are the things that are happening right now that are legitimate and real? Absolutely. But when everything is a symbol and a sign of you know whatever, then it causes people to get confused. Like, well, that's clearly not the case. The eclipse, surely there's signs from the heavens, but an eclipse that happens in the United States is not necessarily an indicator that, like, man, it's going to happen when the sun comes fully, you know, covered by the moon, then that's when the rapture is going to happen. Like, that just causes so much confusion.
An eclipse is not an absolute anomaly event, right? Like, an eclipse isn't something like the Bible says because my wife was talking to me about this, and she said, well, you know, but the Bible does say that the Magi, Magi saw his, you know, we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him, and, you know, whatever. And I said, yeah, but it indicates, at least to some degree, that it was some kind of a unique star. It wasn't like,
sure.
I mean, if it's a star that's always in the sky, they're not going to look at it and go, whoa, wait a minute, that star has never been there.
Yeah.
That's never been in the sky before. Like, these are stargazers. So it was what I would term an absolute anomaly. It was, it's not something that happens every 100 years. It's not something that happens every 500 years.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that's never happened before. And you know what? And biblical imagery, like when it says that the sun shall be darkened and the moon shall be turned to blood. I was telling somebody the other day, we were talking about that. And I said, you know, we've heard all the blood moon stuff. And it's like, oh, this is the fourth blood moon. And it comes in the time of blah, 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 and whatever. And the problem with all of that is it's just like how the devil does things.
Yeah.
You know, he comes into the garden and he talks to Eve and he says, well, God, I know God said don't eat it, but it's not because you'll die, but actually because of the fact that if you eat it, you'll be gods like him. And so it's sort of like it's not saying, you know, he did say you shall not surely die, but then he offers this counter truth. Like, well, the reality is the reason why he said don't eat it is because, and he always does that. Like he is the liar from the beginning. But a lie to be believable has to have some element of truth.
Sure.
And it's like David Ryerson says, you know, the lion and eagle concept still very America-centered viewpoint, which I agree. That's what I said. I mean, if there's even any
potential,
kind of symbolism that remotely could be used, it would be that alone. Like it's not named explicitly. If there's some kind of an implicit deal, that's
Exactly.
the only thing that I could see, which I agree with him.
And a dual implication, right?
Yeah,
Because like you're talking
you
about,
know,
like
but the thing that I think that is important in from our conversation today is this reality, like you said, conspiracy theory stuff and the mindset and mentality of people that is, trying to construe something. Another area that this happens in a lot is of what I would consider like extreme numerology, where
yes.
the
Yes.
letters match numbers, and so if you add them all up and whatever, then it's
Right.
whatever. It's like the reverse
Right.
Da Vinci Code or something. But I think I think those are the kind of things that, while on one end of the spectrum there are biblical prophecies that say that some stuff's going to happen.
Yeah.
Paul tells Timothy, in the last days, perilous times shall come. Men
Yeah.
shall be lovers of pleasure more than God. They'll be they'll be disobedient to parents. They'll be, it names all the different types of characteristics. Well, I mean, clearly it appears that on a worldwide scale,
Yeah.
that kind of anti-God, that antipathy, some of the stuff that's going on in Israel today, there's, anytime there's a war that focuses on Middle East and peace and Israel, and the whole
Right.
idea that, that there could be a conflict that causes a political figure to come in to
Sure.
produce peace.
Sure.
To me, those are the kind of things when you start adding those things up, not trying to construe something out of something to sell a book or
Love
to
that.
get, clicks. And by the way, the whole, like for example, if you look at biblical imagery throughout the scripture, a lot of extremely good biblical scholars missed a lot of things that they thought this sign means this.
Sure.
Like they totally missed so much of this stuff. I mean, I'm sure they probably were reading that the Messiah is coming into Jerusalem and he's riding on, the foal of a donkey that's never been ridden before, and he's coming in, and this is going to be this triumphal moment where it's like, all right, let's get the army up and kick some Roman booty here. It's time
Yeah.
to go. And
Yeah.
they're and the zealots and all of these people, like
Ready to
they
go.
totally expected all of that,
They're
which
ready to
is
go.
one of the
Yeah.
reasons why they missed the coming of the Lord.
Yeah. Which is that's a great point, because you can swing on the pendulum either direction. You can become so hyper focused on it that you start reading something into everything,
Right.
right? Like every traffic accident that happens in, Columbus is evidenced of some conspiracy that's a part of the end time connection or whatever. Like
Right.
just or
Hey, by the way, I saw one. Ready for this?
yeah.
I got to throw this in here. You ready for this?
Yeah.
I saw one just this morning. It was a woman saying she was holding the register of names. It
Yeah.
might have been. I've never seen the movie The Titanic, but it might have been because it looked like a modern deal. And
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe our listeners will know better than I. She was holding this. What do they call it? The passenger
Manifest.
Yeah, right. Like
Manifest.
I started to say the passenger roster. But anyway, she said, when you realize that every one of the people who opposed the formation of the Federal Reserve are on the Titanic with you. I mean, literally the implication is that the Titanic was purposely run into an iceberg to kill all these people who opposed the
Right.
formation of the Federal Reserve, which, by the way, is in some way an anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist.
Well,
It's
you can go down that whole road, right?
I know, bro.
Go down that whole thing. Yeah. So you could swing on that pendulum where you have that piece, and then you have the other side where it's like, well, you you become skeptical and cynical about all of it. None of it ever means anything. That's not going to happen, whatever. And so I think, our conversation today is centered around like, what is the mindset? What is the attitude of a disciple in this complex, confusing season? Because here's the deal, Ken, I don't want to be like the scholars of that day, right? I don't want to be the scribes, like the Bible Project describes the scribes as the true Bible nerds, like the guys that just totally geek out on every jot and tittle of scripture. And then you miss all of the fulfilled prophecies that Jesus did. You miss it all.
Yeah. Like this idea that says it all means something.
Yeah. Right. Right. So I don't want to be ignorant as a disciple of Jesus. I think it's important. We talk a lot about don't swing on the pendulum. You come back to the center of truth. Don't swing one way or the other. Come back to what balance looks like. And so I feel like that a balanced approach for a disciple in this hour that we're living in is, yes, it's complex, right? It is confusing. It can be very disorienting at times, but there are very clear things that Jesus indicated to us to look towards. One of the things you talked about, I think, is so good, man, about Israel, the nation of Israel, to keep your eye on the nation of Israel, the things that are happening there. When you hear amped up dialogue and communication that says, we're not just talking about wiping Israel off the map, we're going to do it. We're going to start doing it. Like those kinds of things you start looking at and be like, okay, we might need to start paying attention to some things that are going on. An eclipse, yeah, there's going to be signs in the heavens. Does that indicate that Jesus is coming back right now, or he's coming back in the United States? Like, come on, bro.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So let's, the balanced approach is there are prophecies that have been given so that we can be aware, so we're not overtaken, right? We're not ignorant of the hour that we're living in. We don't know the day. We don't know, I say the hour. We don't know the day or the hour, but we know seasonally that the things that to be just quite frank, a lot of times when I looked at like end time prophecy and whatever, there were a lot of things that I was like, I just don't see how we can ever get to that place where you have like a one world government, you have all this stuff going on. But the reality is, bro, between technology, we've seen what a pandemic can do to the world. We've seen, amped up communication about we need a worldwide governing body so that it doesn't, bring everything to a halt like COVID did and all that kind of stuff. Like all of the pieces are in place for the things that have been given, the mark of the beast, like all of those kinds of things are in place. They're here and they're ready. So I think the attitude of a disciple needs to be, I'm not gonna get overhyped on every little thing out there and call every little thing a prophecy. I'm also not going to become cynical and skeptical because of that, and also because we've heard it, right? When we first got in church, 89 reasons why the Lord's coming in 89 or 88. I'm sorry. The 89 was the sequel because he missed it in 88. So 89 was the sequel, but 88 reasons why the Lord's coming in 88. Like just because there's some of that stuff, I'm not going to let it make me cynical and skeptical of the real things. I'm going to come back to the center of truth. I want to be aware. I want to be alert, and I want to make sure that I'm ready when he does come back.
Man, bro. Right.
I think that's the start of the mindset for a disciple.
Yeah.
Of Jesus.
And and I think that's the thing where like when you look at things that are going on today, like I think this is pertinent. This is so pertinent to some things that are happening in the world right now, where we see in like at Columbia University and Harvard, some of these Ivy League schools, some of these pro-Hamas protests. I heard some audio. I saw some video and heard some audio from some of those protests, and they were making chants. They were chanting at one point for the name of I can't remember the name of the Ahazi or something like that. Make us proud. Al-Hazi make us. It's the militant group of Hamas responsible for the attacks in Israel that started this whole, the current conflict that's going on there. And literally what they were saying was, here's your next victim. Here, they were carrying signs with arrows pointing to Jews and saying, Hamas, here's your next victim, please. They were chanting, "We are Hamas." I mean, and in a city where there's, in a city where it was just 21 years ago that the Twin Towers fell at the hands of Muslim extremists.
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that when you start it to me, that's different than some of the Ferguson stuff that happened a few years ago.
Sure.
I mean, I know that the Bible talks about that there's going to be an escalation of violence and brutality, and I think those are indicators. I think, I saw a deal today that was talking about some Taylor Swift songs and how much, Jewish. Gary Gother says allegedly. I heard the audio. This isn't alleged. I heard the audio. I heard him chanting it. So, yeah. So I think that's the thing. That's the thing, though. I think that's important where we look at what's going on in the world today. That specifically shows us, like some of the Taylor Swift songs where there was very anti-religious rhetoric and whatever, but there's always been
Swifties are going to be coming after the Mobilized Church podcast.
I know. Well, but dude, she uses religious language very irreligiously.
Yeah.
She's like, I would die for you to redeem you, but you can't. Oh yeah. I'm sorry, Gary. Gary's talking about the Twin Towers reference. Yeah.
I got you.
I got you. Okay. I see what you're saying. Exactly. Yeah. We're not. Yeah. So
speaking of conspiracy, right?
Oh man, I started to go down the wormhole, but
don't do it, bro.
But no, but the thing about it is I think this is something that, like for example, okay, you look at, because there has been sacrilegious uses of biblical.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
There has been sacrilegious uses of biblical concepts. There have been, years ago, Madonna was probably, she was the queen of using
what was the one, something
language.
about a prayer?
Yeah.
Something about a prayer that was like vile. The video, when that all came out.
Right. And we've had things over the last, even as my memories just, recounting some things. I mean, we've seen halftime shows at Super Bowls that people say that was a straight up satanic ritual. Like, I don't know. And like people who've come out of witchcraft or whatever. And I don't know. I don't know enough about it to know whether it was. It looked pretty demonic. Like they were splattering blood everywhere or something that, represented blood. They were.
Here's your sign.
I mean, they had upside down crosses with people wearing demonic goat heads, sprinkling blood. I mean, who knows? It could mean, Michael Jordan was the goat. They wore red. I don't know. Whatever. But anyway, but I do think that, but the thing about it is that one way, and you just said one way that people swing on the pendulum is, some people swing on the pendulum in the direction of saying everything means something and it's fixing to come down and it's, man, we're headed to World War III. I saw a woman with a sign yesterday sitting outside of Kroger, sitting in a chair with a sign that said, "War is coming. Are you saved?" Yesterday. Okay. And I'm bringing that up to say that there's the one side of the pendulum. That's my response. My response is, I'm freaking out and I'm going to get ready. And I've got, a year's worth of freeze dried meals. On the other end of the spectrum, there's the people that sort of fit into the category that Jesus said that before my return, there's going to be people saying, come on. We've heard this stuff over and over again. Where are the signs of his return? We continue like, he says they're going to be like as it was in the days of Noah. They're going to be marrying, giving in marriage. It's like things. It's going
Everyday
on.
life.
The world's going on like it's always gone on. Come on, man.
Right. Right.
You
Right. And that's why I think that balance is so critical. I think we need to have our eyes and so with that, Ken, with the prophecies that you're talking about, the things that we know, the things that we see happening in our world today,
right.
There is, I think, one of the signs, the end times, men's hearts will fail them for fear. We see an amped up, kind of an increase of people battling like anxiety, we've been talking about the book Bad Therapy, and this is not a promotion. I'm not saying, but like there's some conversation about like, a generation has the most access to mental health tools and counseling and whatever, and the least healthy mentally healthy generation. Like that's what some of the experts are saying about all that kind of stuff. I think that stuff is evidence of the hour and the time that we're living in.
Right.
And, Michael Frost, Living Questionable Lives. I think one of the best ways that we can live questionable lives in the hour that we're living in is when we start to see these things. The command is to look up, for your redemption draws nigh. That I think one of the things, Ken, I mentioned this to the church the other day. One of the things that I think COVID really did is it revealed the real fear that Christians have of death, which I think is primarily rooted and grounded in the fact that and obviously this is coming up, our the majority of our crowd or people listening are American Christians, but because we're so comfortable, we have it so good, and we start seeing through that lens, and now all of a sudden the thought of death and the thought of not being in this world is a fearful thing. But the real attitude of a disciple and believer is to live as Christ, to die as gain. My only purpose in this life is to perpetuate the gospel and the kingdom of God. And so if Paul said, I would rather be absent from this body and be present with the Lord. That would be my choice. If I had the choice, that's what I would choose right now, is to be out of this world and be present with the Lord. But his will is, and his purpose is for me to be here to further his kingdom. And I think there is an absolute overwhelming feel. There ought to be a difference. So Michael Frost, Living Questionable Lives, there ought to be a difference between disciples of Jesus and people that don't have the hope that we have. And so how are we demonstrating and showing that we're not being freaked out by all the stuff that's happening? We're not freaked out when Iran says we're going to blow Israel off the map. What we're doing is we're looking up saying, okay, I don't know when he's coming, but these are all things that could portray to that. This is why we've lived the life, bro. This is why we repented. This is why we get baptized in Jesus' name. This is why we get filled with the Holy Ghost. This is why we try to live the life of a disciple and let him change and transform us, is so that when that time comes, whether it's through his second coming and calling us home, or whether we pass from this life, that I'm ready to step into what I was really created for. This is not what I was created for. Unless a grain of wheat falls in the ground and dies, it's not revealed what it was intended to be. And I think there's so many Christians in this hour that I think honestly, bro, I believe it is a gift from God. I really do. I believe it's a gift from God to walk us through these difficult seasons so that it extracts, don't be entangled. I think it extracts us from the entanglements from the world that we have allowed ourselves to get into, and get our eyes focused on eternal things.
So good. So good. We need to excerpt that right there as just a mini sermon, that snippet right there is, I think it's key. It's key to having the kingdom culture. Like as you were talking, I thought about the Jesus culture the Jesus way,
Yeah.
right? What
Yeah.
is the kingdom way?
That's what we need to be seeking.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is that our lives are supposed to indicate that the kingdom way is the better way.
Yes.
As we identify what the kingdom reign of Jesus Christ, the rule and reign, like what is our life about? What is the life of a Christian? It is to demonstrate why the rule and reign of Jesus Christ is the better way.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
And if we indicate why the rule and reign of Jesus Christ is the better way in us, which why is that? Because it gives us better. It gives us a way out of trauma. It gives us the way. I mean, it gives us a way out of not a way out of an escapism, but
Sure.
literally victory. Jesus said, "In this world you have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world."
Yeah.
So the victory that he that he has won is a victory that he has then also spoken over our lives. And I was praying the other day, and it was the craziest deal. I was praying the other day, and the Lord. This is weird that I'm springing this on you right here and now, but
here we go.
But I was praying the other day, and the Lord spoke to me and said, "I don't want you and your brother to ever say the words because obviously, our mom just passed away, and we had our grandmother on our dad's side had dementia. Our grandmother on our mom's side had dementia. Our mom had dementia, and the Lord spoke to me in prayer and said, I don't ever want to hear you guys say, I hope I die before that happens to me."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "You pray, I don't want to die until I've done all God's called me to do." Right. He said, "Because you are not defined by a disease outcome. You're not defined by the brokenness. You are defined by my purpose and calling. So don't ever say, I hope I die before that happens to me." Because he said, because you leaving this world has nothing to do with escaping any of those things. If you're not done doing what I've called you to do, then these things won't happen to you. Don't fear it. And so,
which is a lot of Prisoner in the Third Cell book. I can't remember the author, but he wrote, what was the one about David? Oh man, about David being offended. But about Prisoner in the Third Cell, right? About John the Baptist being in that prison, doing everything for Jesus, doing it all the right way. And then looking at it and saying like, dude, was all of this for a waste? And did I, whatever, he never got to see it. But what did he do? He fulfilled his purpose. He fulfilled his role. And Jesus basically said, look, you did what you were called to do. That this is your lot.
Dude, isn't it crazy? Here's the thing. And I think this is the thing that you just identified that I think is so important, not in your the last statement there, but in that the spot that you gave a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah.
I think it's important because, and we're having some great comments today, man. Like
so many good comments.
Golly, such good comments. David Ryerson said, "Success is not buildings or numbers. Success is laying your head on the pillow at night, knowing that you've obeyed him today." Jonathan Hudson, yes, look up, stay focused. Divine appointments, Jesus is the answer. Stephen Hill said, "I teach preparation in the place of prophecy." Man, David Ryerson said, "I don't want to suffer, but I don't want to stay here either." Right? That's Jay Jones said, speak of the end, not Jesus spoke of the end, not to cause fear of the end, but to figure out when it would happen. He spoke to stress the importance of living ready for it. And I think these are the things, Chris. Here's the crazy deal. Modern day Christians that have their focus on here,
yes,
will also have prophetic focus on here.
Yes.
When
so
your
good,
life is the accumulation of earth events, and Jesus is sort of just interacting and weaving into those things. I think this is really critical. Like I know, having been many years in ministry now, I know that it is so easy for us to get into a place in our life, in our walk with God, that so much of our feeling, our sense, let's say it like this, our
Yeah.
sense of spiritual well-being, our sense of destiny, our sense of purpose, our sense of flourishing
Yeah. Right.
is circumstantial. It leans heavy circumstantial.
Yes.
It leans light spiritual.
Interesting.
I've
So
I've just
interesting.
watched it. I've
Yeah.
watched it over and over and over. The events that happen in the lives of people become the thing that becomes the definer. It's, I lost my job. This happened to me. They said this word. They were mean to me. That blah, 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 blah. I'm not suggesting that those things aren't trials. I'm not
Sure.
suggesting that those things aren't
Yeah.
attacks on our sense of well being. But what should they be? They should be the things that drive us back to our fundamentals, which is if any man have the spirit, if that same spirit which raised Christ from the dead dwell in you, quicken your mortal bodies. It
Yes.
is, nothing shall separate us. Death, famine, war, tribulation, things present, things past, nothing shall separate us from the love of God. I'm not who I am as a result of the events of my life. I am
Yes.
who Jesus says I am.
Yes.
But when we've got earthbound believers that don't see themselves as pilgrims, that don't see themselves as, we're living here for this little period of time. This is a
Absolutely.
vapor.
So good.
We're here and then we're gone. This is just a vapor moment, man. Okay, so this is just, we're getting ready to, we're going to leave this world one way or the other. And I love these comments because they're reminding us, look up. Look up means, I don't think Jesus is saying look up as like, start looking around, it's fixing. I think it means stop focusing on this, start focusing on that, because it's really close.
Man, that's so good. And I feel like what we're doing today in the conversation, even like this is a good spiritual conversation, because what we're doing is we're doing kind of a fruit to root scenario, right? So you see the fruit, which is evidenced in living, but what's causing that behavior? And I think there's several causes. What you're talking about, it's the earth up perspective. It's the everything is focused on circumstances and what I'm going through and what's happening right here, which is so much of our Christian preaching in our world today. It's all about your prosperity and about
Your
your
best life
blessing,
now, bro.
your best life
It's
now.
Joel Osteen.
Yeah.
It's attractional Christianity.
It's exactly what it is. I think that's a huge piece of it. I think a byproduct of that, then what that does is it puts your trust in things that are temporal and puts your trust in things that are completely inadequate. So if you start building your life and your tendency is to put your trust in those things, you're going to put your trust in those things in all things. And so I think it's starting to reveal, do we really trust that the Lord's plan is better?
So good, dude.
Is it really
So
better?
good.
Is that really, is he really going to do it? I don't know if he's really going to do it. And it makes us start to question and start to wonder all these kinds of things. And then the third piece there, I know I saw the comment from Jay Jones, we live through purpose, not circumstance. I think it reveals that so many people are not living for purpose. They're living to be preserved, but they're not living for purpose.
Bro.
Well, I can't do this. I'm not supposed to do this. This is immoral. This is whatever. And exactly what you said, our purpose defines everything about us, what we're going to do, how we're going to live. And if you extract that purpose out, now all of a sudden it's just kind of a maintenance thing until either, I pass from this life or whatever. But when you have purpose, you understand God's going to direct and order, and he's going to guide, he's going to put you in the right places. And we got so many people that are living with zero purpose. This is why we're so passionate about discipleship and about disciple making, is because that's the greatest purpose. The will of God is that before he comes back, that the gospel is preached everywhere. He
Yeah.
wants
Well,
every person.
look at Gary Gothier and Jay Jones back to back talked about the refocusing that happens. I love these
Yeah.
statements here. Gary said it's a reminder to look to the fields that are white to harvest. Jay says, get your focus off the waves, Peter, or you'll drown in them. I think this is the thing, Chris. This is so good because, I mean, at the end of the day, if we're living for this world, if we're living attached and anchored to this world, like somebody who was it? Hummel said, John Hummel, it's hard to mount up with wings as an eagle if you're anchored to the earth, right? Like and that's
Yeah,
the thing. I
right.
think it's the barnyard duck poem. The have you ever heard that? The barnyard duck.
I think so. I can't remember it.
I just think that what we're talking about today indicates this idea that says or speaks of this idea that we are living if we're living for the here and now, we are going to experience um, a, a high degree of fear and confusion and consternation.
Yeah, about
We were talking,
absolutely.
Chris.
Even stuff that's supposed to bring hope. The end times message, he said, encourage each other with these words. It's supposed to bring hope. And yet when we talk about it, when we preach about it, when we talk about it's like things are coming together. Instead, it's producing fear. The question, like we're trying to unearth today, is like, why? Why is that producing fear in us? Because it's that earthbound view.
Well, and this is the thing. Wednesday night at your church, and this wasn't in my notes, but really sort of the Lord, the Spirit kind of brought everything together at this place, and that was that Paul said that I believe that the current strife and struggle is not worthy to be compared to the eternal weight of glory. And you've got to envision old school scales. If you compared, there is a term of like scales, like not scales on your eyes, but the like weight scales, like you see in law, whatever. And a scale is basically just like even in the back in the day, they would have a weight, and they would know this is a 1 ounce or a 1 pound weight or whatever. And they would sit it on the scale like that was the standard. And then they would put something else on it to measure out. And then they would take some grain off or add some grain or whatever it was that they were measuring to be 1 pound worth or whatever. It was the scale that determined it was a measure against a measure. When Paul says that he said, my light affliction, what was his light affliction? 3 times he was beaten with 40 stripes, save one. He spent a night and a day in the deep. He was in perils of his countrymen. He was stoned and left for dead in Lystra. On and on and on. We could talk about what is Paul talking about when he said my light affliction. I'm going to tell you something right now. My struggles are nothing in comparison to Paul's, but that's the point. Paul is saying my affliction is only light if it's being put into the scale with the eternal weight of glory.
Yes.
My affliction might be extremely heavy. It might be like soul-shatteringly heavy.
Sure.
If I'm comparing it to what other people are going through, why do I have to go through this? They don't have to go through it. But he says, but we're not comparing what's going on down here with what's going on down here.
You're right.
See, earthbound people start comparing what's going on down here with what's going on down here. He's saying, I'm comparing what's going on down here with what's waiting for me over there. And when that happens, the eternal weight of glory, the worst events of my life here in this time of my vapor living.
Yeah.
It can't be compared.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest challenges, so there's a book by Randy Alcorn called Heaven, and he makes the statement, and there's probably some things in there that I'm maybe questionable on or whatever, but he makes this statement again, And he said, a heaven that cannot be imagined becomes an undesirable heaven.
Wow.
And I think some of our poor theology or communication about heaven has produced this idea and this mindset of like, well, is there like, yeah, I don't want cancer and I don't want gangs and I don't want drugs and all that kind of stuff. But the imagery that we've communicated about what heaven is has made it undesirable from the standpoint of in comparison to like a good life, your best life now and whatever, just take what I have now, my good home, my good marriage, my good family, my good and whatever, and just take the other problems away and then everything will be just fine.
Yeah. Just give me a mansion here.
Just give me a mention here. If it's standing around the throne, playing a tambourine and singing Kumbaya, like that doesn't really have the appeal. I think one of our challenges and issues is we've not communicated and articulated that we're called to rule and reign in heaven. Heaven is a restoration of God's original plan. The original plan of Eden is to be restored, where they didn't just sit around and do nothing and just talk about how great God was all the time. They lived their lives as an expression, bro. This is why what we're doing now is so powerful, because they live their lives as an expression of worship to the Creator in purity and perfection. And that's what God's calling us to. We're not just sitting in white robes, playing a harp, sitting around singing worship songs for eternity.
And well, here's the deal. If you think, well, if I had $50 million in a mansion, and never get sick, the question is, why would you need heaven? And here's the theological answer to that. The theological answer is because you will die.
Right.
You could have $50 million and a mansion. There will be a sickness unto death. There will be a moment where you're going to exit this temporal life and enter into eternity.
100%.
So I think that's the thing. Let me, I know we're up against time here. My final words will be to quote the poem, The Barnyard Duck. He says, I think my soul is a tame old duck dabbling around in barnyard muck, fat and lazy with useless wings, but sometimes when the north wind sings and the wild ones hurtle overhead, it remembers something lost and dead and cocks a wary, bewildered eye and makes a feeble attempt to fly. It's fairly content with the state it's in, but it isn't the duck it might have been.
My God. My God.
Let's end with the poem.
How can you how can you top that? How can you,
bro? On the Mobilized Church podcast, a poem about a duck at the end of this conversation is the microcosm of what the Mobilized Church podcast is.
Absolutely. It would be heretical to even add anything to that. Like how can you top that? Like it's as good as you can get. Man, so much good stuff, bro. And I think this is such a needful conversation and so many comments. I wish we had time to really go through and just kind of talk about all of these comments. So many good ones. I think what we know is this, Ken. There is an exorbitant amount. It is exuberant, but an exorbitant amount of interest and question and curiosity and all this kind of stuff about all things end times. What's going to happen? What's the Antichrist going to look like? What's the mark of the beast going to be? What is our world going to look like? What's going to happen? What's the rapture? When's it going to happen? What are we going to do when we get to heaven? Like there's all of these kinds of this curiosity, these questions that has produced some anxiety. As a disciple of Jesus, it ought to produce hope, and it ought to be a wake-up call to align us with his purpose and his mission, to recognize and realize, Ken, this is just a vapor, bro. This is just a vapor. We're just here for a short season. Right. And the mindset of a disciple is to live as Christ, to die as gain.
That's it.
That is the fundamental belief of a disciple of Jesus when it comes to the end times, the world we're living in. How can God use us? People that don't know anything about this, but they feel the uneasiness of our world. God wants to use us to show them what it's like to have hope and to live out the better way of Jesus. So
Hey,
I
hey,
said I wasn't
Chris.
going to add, but I did. I'm sorry.
No, no, that's good. Why did Abraham live his life in tents? Why was he a tent dweller? The Bible answers the question. Why was Abraham a tent dweller? Did he not have the money to afford a home? Did he? No, he's the wealthiest, most powerful. He was the most powerful man in the world. He went out with his own soldiers, his
Yeah.
own mercenary soldiers, and defeated the kings of Israel who had taken Lot captive. Okay,
Yeah.
he he was a bad mamma jamma. But here's the deal: Abraham dwelt in tents. Why? Because here we have no continuing city, but he sought one with foundations whose
Yeah.
builder and
Builder.
maker was God.
That's it.
Why are we tent dwellers? Because we're the children of Abraham.
True. So good, man. So good. Appreciate everybody jumping on today, being a part of the conversation. You definitely help us and make this
Oh,
conversation better.
bro.
I mean, it's so good.
Our
There's
comments, dude. That's the secret sauce of the podcast. It's
unbelievable how many amazing comments today. So thank you guys for joining us, being a part. Check us out, dillinghamgroup.org. Check out all of our social media sites. We definitely appreciate you being a part every single week. We look forward to coming back next Tuesday around 10 o'clock in the morning. Until then, go live mobilized.